Hi artists, we are going to create a watercolor landscape using some of the skills that we just learned in the watercolor basics. So the first thing I want you to do is you need your pencil and you need to tape one of the pieces of your 4.5 by 6 inch watercolor papers to your sketchbook. Once you've taped it down, we're going to start by creating an underdrawing for the watercolor landscape that we're going to make. So one of our students sent us a row of mountains with a sunset, and I thought that would be a fun thing to try together. So the first thing you're going to do is put a line. This represents some mountain tops. So there's a line in the lower section of your artwork. And it doesn't have to be exactly the same as mine because mountains are irregular. Okay, and then there's another row behind that, another row of mountains. Press a little lighter this time, so don't press too hard. Okay, and there's a few more rows, so it's important that we have about 5 or 6 rows of mountains in our work. More back here, and the further they get, the more jagged they get because you can see the higher peaks further away. Okay, and the last row of mountains is up here. It's the most jagged. Okay, now we're going to get our watercolor set, and we need to put a little water in each tray. So yours might already be wet. If not, put a little more water in to each tray. Okay, and we're going to start with our lightest value. So I'm going to use yellow in the top above the highest peaks. So I'm going to use a little bit of yellow and a lot of water in the palette to mix, okay? So don't use directly from the tray, but mix it with some water. And I'm going to put the yellow above the last row of mountains. If you run into the mountains a little, that's okay, but try not to touch in this section below the mountains. Okay, I'm just gonna rub my brush across the paper. I'm gonna add a little water as I go. And then I'm gonna take some blue, mix it into my palette with water, so it's not super dark blue, and the blue comes down from the top towards the yellow. When the blue touches the yellow, it's gonna make the color green, so that doesn't really occur in the sky naturally, so I'm gonna try not to blend the blue into the yellow very much. Okay. And I have my paper towel with me just to blot my brush. Okay, next I'm going to mix some red and purple together to create the color magenta, and that's the color that we're going to use for our mountains. So the last row of mountains, the one that's farthest away, is the faintest. So I'm going to use a really light value of purple or magenta in this last row here. If you have too much water on your brush, you can just blot it on your paper towels or tissue or toilet paper. Okay, and I'm going to use a little water, wipe my brush, and blend the purple down so it gets a little lighter towards the bottom of the mountains, a little darker towards the top. So I'm going to add a little more dark value. We have to work quickly because it dries quickly, and blend down. Okay, I'm going to do the darkest row of mountains. So I'm going to use purple with black to create that. So I'm going to use this directly from the palette because the mountains that are closest to us in the foreground are going to be really dark, okay? And everything in between is going to gradually get lighter and lighter. And I might create a few little trees on this peak, so just put a little line with, it's going to create the illusion that we're looking at something that's far away. Okay, I'm just going to fill this all in with that really dark black mixed with purple. Okay, next I'm going to use a slightly darker value as I go to each mountain. So this row of mountains here is going to be slightly darker than the furthest mountains. And fill it in until it touches the next set of mountains. Okay, and then we're going to get a little darker. I'm going to mix some more purple with red. So a little darker each row of mountains that gets closer to us. And then I'm going to take a little water, so I'm going to blend it to be a little lighter. And for this row here, I'm going to use purple and red directly from the palette to get a really dark purple. If it bleeds into the row behind it, that's okay. You can always use your tissue to blot it up if you make a mistake. And this is the black in the foreground, the one that's closest to us, is mostly dry. So I'm just gonna try not to touch it too much, but it shouldn't bleed too badly if it does touch. Well, I'm just gonna blend it a little bit more gradually. You see how it's pretty choppy here? I'm just gonna try to get it a little more gradual with the blending. Okay, great. And I'm going to add a little bit more excitement in the sunset. So I'm going to take some orange and mix it with a little water and maybe get a little orange going in this sunset. So I put orange down now. I'm just going to add some water to it. maybe a little purple as well in the blue. And I'm just going to leave this white that's already there because it kind of works for clouds. Okay, last step to really make your artwork stand out. We're going to peel off the tape, and you see you're going to get this really crisp edge, which makes it great to display in a frame or just on the wall. So when I peel it off, I'm going to peel it at like a 45-degree angle. If you peel it straight, it sometimes rips the paper. So peeling it at an angle is a little safer choice to not rip your paper. Okay, and that's our first watercolor landscape.